My family moved to a rural town. I grew up in there to escape into the quiet, calm atmosphere. Acres of land separated at neighbors' houses from each other, and grass meadows were widespread out of hundreds of yards. I couldn't invite any of my old friends from the town I formerly lived in, and the houses were too far from each other to approach any of the neighbors' homes on my own and meet the other children. I spent most of my time in the next few weeks living there in the front yard of the house, sitting on the lawn and playing with my toys, as my mother sat on the porch watching me. Although most of my memory from our short period living in that house was hazy, I distinctly remember a few events that transpired there while I was 5. It began when I was sitting down in front of the television, flipping through the channels and searching for my favorite show, a children's program featuring singing and talking animals. It was only on in the afternoons, and I couldn't find any station playing an episode. So I continued to search the channels as we didn't receive the Abdugsony channels in town, but I could find a couple of popular stations. I landed on the show that I was familiar with. I remember glancing at the corner of the screen and discerning it as it was a children's station broadcasting various well-known shows. My eyes widened, glanced up at the bright, flashing television screen. Cartoon-drawn animals were helping the children learn how to share. A joyful melody played throughout the episode. The following week, I was sitting in front of the television, and I stumbled across a children's station again. But it was broadcasting a different program. I can't remember the title of the show I found, but I can vividly remember everything that happened. A group of children were gathered around a tree. They were all holding hands and gazing up with cheerful smiles on their faces. They were singing a song in an illusion. I don't remember the words of the song, but I do remember it involved something out the loud, or the Lord, and contained words such as phrases like happiness and love. It sounded like a children's gospel music, and children singing together on the screen resembled the groups of children singing at the pews of the church that my parents had taken me before. I heard the sound of footsteps approaching the living room. My mom's chipper voice asked me what I was watching. I don't remember what my reply was, but a puzzled look grew on her face, and she announced that lunch was ready and gestured me to the kitchen. A short while later, I stumbled upon this show again. Something immediately began to grow unsettling as I watched. There wasn't really anything overly strange about it, but something seemed wrong. I began to feel anxious and had a familiar lump grew in my throat, accompanied by a knot in my stomach. I felt growing whenever I felt nervous about the situation or at school or with my friends. But the uneasiness developed into something I hadn't recalled feeling before. Like I was watching something I wasn't supposed to be seeing. A voice narrated the importance of the sharing and the children with the camera focused on a group of children sitting down on a carpeted floor. Toys spread out before them. The film had appeared to be in poor quality, and the intermediate bursts in the static, distorting the screen. 3 of the children sat in the circle, playing with the alphabet blocks, and 2 girls talked to a doll about the size of a baby, with medium-length blonde hair and a pink skirt and demi jeans. Another group of children were filling up the coloring books at the table. The girls were acting out some sort of story with the doll. It seemed like a normal game to a child to play with their dolls. But every so often between their sentences, I heard something that didn't sound right, like a strange word or phrase. I can't remember what they were saying, but I remember feeling disquieted. The bursts of static between each clip began to increase, the image of the audio becoming more distorted. It only lasted for a fraction of a second, but I caught a glimpse of an image flashing across the screen during each interruption. It was so fast that I couldn't be discerned if you were to be paying close attention. I only caught a glimpse of red as the image flashed across the screen for the last time. Suddenly the image returned to normal, the audio was smooth, and there was no interruption in between clips. The children continued to play with their toys. I recalled having a nightmare when I went to sleep that night. I remember it was so vivid that I wondered if it had really happened for a long time. I was playing in the playground that I remembered visiting my old town. I ran around underneath the warm sun. The sky was a bright blue, and the leaves on of the trees gently rustled in the wind. I climbed up the stairs of the playground and rolled down the slides. I climbed onto the platform and gripped to the edge of the slide. I just pushed myself off enough and was preparing to roll down again. Just as I let go of the edge, and I felt my body slowly sliding down the cool surface of the slide. I saw a face at the bottom of this tunnel. It was red and its eyes were black, no visible pupils. It was just sitting, perched at the bottom of the slide, just staring at me through the tunnel. I was overwhelmed by impending fear. My mouth opened to a scream, but no sound escaped. My eyes fluttered open, and I tried to adjust my vision to the darkness. I was in my room in my bed, underneath the princess-themed comforter. In red illuminated digits on my alarm clock read 3:34 a.m. My body was drenched with cold sweat, and my face was stained with tears. I reached out my hand to the high-pitched blackness to turn on the light. My hand caught a hold of a string. I jerked it down, and my heart thumping so loudly, I could hear it in my head. I sighed in relief when the light turned on, but the face of that figure never left my head, as it stared at me. I could feel the movement of nature, and it was inanimated. Now everything seemed to be normal following the morning. Our neighbors visited for the first time, and we sat down for lunch together. At the table, as they asked me questions about school and my favorite toys, and movies and television shows, my mom explained that I hadn't begun preschool yet, and she was just planning on finding me a school soon. And they had started a conversation about local schools. After the guests left, the show was playing when I turned on the television. The same group of children were playing a game of hide and seek, and the camera was following them. A song was playing in the background in an animated whimsical tune. The camera followed their steps as they ran through the doors, hid behind the corners, crawled through the tight spaces, and crouched behind furniture. A boy leaned against the wall and covered his eyes with his hands, and he began to count to 30. A young girl with brown hair pulled back into a ponytail wandered down along the hallway. All of a sudden, her movements became very slow and the music ceased. There was something deafening silence, and you couldn't even hear the sound of her footsteps. The camera began to shake and appeared as if it gradually was teetering from side to side. I felt nauseous as I looked at the screen. The boy stepped through at the end of the hallway into the lit room, and there was a small door in the corner of the wall. She crouched down and began to crawl towards it. Her hand rested on the miniature doorknob. The door swung open, and the camera was lowered to the lens. It was fixed forward as it crawled through the narrow passage to the other side. I couldn't discern of what was going on the other side, but I could perceive the glimpse of a room. There appeared to be nothing inside. It was entirely absent of furniture, or doors, or windows. The walls were painted red, a garish, intense red. As soon as she reached out for the end of the passage, the door to the entrance door shut behind her. The camera displayed into a different room, the boy in his forehead pressed against the wall, and his hands covering his eyes, and the sound of his counting audible again. 27, 28, 29, 30. He jerked away from the wall, and with his hands fell to his sides. He began to explore the house, searching for the other hiding children. He had kneeled down beside a table. A little girl with curly blonde hair leaped out from underneath. He peered into the rooms, swung open the closet doors, and peeked behind furniture. Random children appeared, popping out of their hiding places. The show came to an end, but I remember the thought lingering in the back of my mind. They had never showed the little girl with brown hair being found. As I was having trouble falling asleep the following nights, for some reason every time my mom turned off the light, she left the room, I watched the door being shut behind her. I was filled with this strange sense of unease and dread. I kneeled down beside my bed, and my hands and knees pressed onto the floor. Inattentively leaned forward, and I peered underneath my bed. I could hear the sound of my heavy, trembling breaths, and my heart was racing in my chest. My cheek touched the cool, hardwood surface of the floor, and my eyes frantically searched for the darkness. My stuffed rabbit lay splayed out on the floor beneath the bed, aroused out but by the black darkness. I didn't bother to reach out for it. I just stood up into my bare feet and staggered over to my parents' bedroom. I asked them if we could sleep in their bed, and my mom offered to escort me back to my room. As I lied down in the darkness, I heard the sound of knocking at my window. I couldn't bring up myself to turn around, my heart hammering in my chest. I heard the knocking again, like the sound of fingertips rapping against the glass pane. I glanced up, feeling the urge to scream, but unable to form a sound. A black shadow appeared from behind the window, standing in the frame. The door swung open. My parents rushed in, and my mother kneeling by my bedside. She asked me what was wrong. I tried to explain to her, with tears streaming down my face. That was all I'd seen outside my window. My mother had explained that she had another night terror. Stroking my hair after my father gazed out of the window, he strolled outside and searched the yard, but there was no one there. The next time I watched the show, a group of children were sitting at the table. A little girl with black bangs and was reading from a book. Its pages were covered with rows and rows of small black letters. It sounded like the Bible, but there was something a bit different about it. She passed the book to another child, and as the boy began to read, the sense of uneasiness in my stomach increased. The words resembled the passages of the Bible, but there was something aberrant about them. There were subtle nuisances and devastations. In the scene that followed, the same group of children were sitting in the classroom. Their glances were fixed ahead in their seats. A faint, dull voice spoke in the background. Underneath it, I could hear this weeping sound. The disembodied voice continued to deliver their speech to the class. It grew louder into a ceaseless wailing noise. I could hear the sound of pounding and banging. Images flashed across the screen. A brief second of between the tape and the school children, sitting in their seats. I couldn't get discerned about the contents of all the pictures, but as they reappeared, I caught a glimpse of another image of hand, appearing what belonged to a child. The wailing noise grew louder, and at the background, the hand reaches up, an outstretched arm, fingertips scraping the wall, scraps of paint peeling off. A schoolgirl was in one of the desks, stood up from her seat, and approached the front of the classroom with unsteady footsteps. She kneeled over and vomited on the floor. A stream of yellowish liquid emerged from her mouth and propelled towards the ground. The tape ended with the regular broadcast station resumed. I woke up the next morning to discontent voices outside. The sound of my mother sobbing. I don't remember what much has happened, but my parents brought all of our clothes and our belongings outside, and we carried them to a moving van before we returned to our former town. I only caught a few words of the sentences from their conversation before we left. As we gathered outside of the house, my parents were speaking to the police. The police explained something to my mother with a solemn expression on his face, nodding in between every few seconds. I remember him talking about something regarding the children's television show being broadcasted in the town. I didn't understand everything he was saying, but I remember he spoke about the neighbors and the religious gathering in town. He explained that the fairies had administrators and the local preschool, and the mentioned words underground tunnels and hidden rooms. I didn't understand why, but I could feel my heart sink to my stomach when I heard him say those words, red painted room. We returned to the comfort of our former town, and I met with my friends and we went to my favorite nearby parks again. For a long time, I forgot about the isolated town, but when I grew older, it returned to my mind again. Sometimes I tried to believe that most of it was all solace of my dreams and childhood delusions, but the images still fill my head, and I feel all of the feelings return. Memories are something I couldn't understand, and it couldn't be comprehend. And that, my little pretties, was the children's show, a creepypasta. My final thoughts on this story? Well, this is actually a pretty good creepypasta. I actually really was looking at, wanting to narrate this one for a while because I'm going to be 100% honest. Don't really see a whole lot of people, narrate this story. I mean, I've seen a few people did, but not really a whole lot of people actually narrated this story. I mean, Mr. Creepypasta narrated this one not too long ago, as well as King Spook, and that was like 4 years ago. So I decided to go out of my way and, narrate this story. I honestly really do think it's a pretty good creepypasta when it involved this one protagonist only being a child, didn't really understand or know much, but eventually they come across they explain of their experience from when they were a kid. And I mean, it's actually a pretty good concept for what this story really is. Now, it doesn't really explain what the TV show is or what it's about, but I have a feeling it was some sort of religious TV show or something. But I mean, it's still a pretty good story for what it is, but I think it's like some religious show that actually kind of was scary or something. I think that's what the protagonist was watching in this pasta, but yet again, I don't really know what it was that they were watching. They could be watching maybe some terrifying kid show or something. I mean, there were a couple of kid shows when I was a kid growing up. I did watch a couple of messed up TV shows that do have messed up concepts. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've seen like more messed up concepts in them. So I mean, I'm gonna be honest when I say this now. The story itself is actually it's actually a pretty interesting concept for how the whole what was on TV, and the protagonist, watched something on TV and they were somewhat scared of it. I have a feeling that this person was the protagonist was traumatized of what she saw on TV. I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, anything could be possible, really. Anything could be really possible, but all we gotta really do is just, use our imagination and, go from there, I guess, because it's it's not really well explained, really, but maybe that's just me. But like I'm gonna say right now, I mean, everybody's like, well, different with, certain things on how they view things. Maybe this person might have, maybe viewed something. I don't really know, to be completely fair here, but yeah. But anyways, that being said, and with that being the case, I actually do find this story to be enjoyable. Yeah. I don't know who the original author of this story is, so to the author, if you happen to come across this video and you happen to be the author of this story, be sure to leave me a comment in the comments below, because yeah, I will give you proper credit if you do find this video and you happen to be the author of the story. Let me know in the comments below, because I'll definitely make sure to give you proper credit on that. So, I just want to state that just in case. Overall, I do find this story to be enjoyable. It's a pretty good story. It's worth to read. Like I said, I mean, there's a lot of regular pastas that are worth to read, but this one is actually one of them that I really do find it to be enjoyable. Like I'm gonna say right now, and like I always continue to say, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be I'm gonna give this one a 10 out of 10. It's a good and enjoyable creepypasta. It's definitely well made. It's a really good, enjoyable story. There's definitely a lot of time and effort into this story, as well as the good quality that work that the protagonist and the author manages to put it in the story. So I definitely say there's definitely a good background information, back things up of, the backstory of the protagonist and all that, I definitely would have to say it's a pretty good story. So, with that being the case, and with that being said, I'm gonna sit here and say this right now that this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rate of this story, well, it's 10 out of 10. I don't know if I actually you know, if I did, state, my final rate, I'm sorry, but yeah, my final rating is 10 out of 10 in case if you guys missed it. But yeah. What did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what we have done person to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.